Holla ballers and welcome to a new game. Because we've done some huge projects recently, we did Elden Ring and then we did Baldur's Gate back to back, each encompassing like 150 plus hours each. I wanted to spend a week doing a game that's like done in a day, that are legendary, that have been on my personal list of games that I've been dying to play for so long. And the first thing we're jumping into is Papers, Please. Papers, Please is something I was aware of for years. In fact, it's gone over 10 years since this game's come out. Created by one guy, Lucas Pope, made this game himself. Oh my god. The simplicity and this is just exactly why AAA games are really struggling right now, is that they lack so much creativity that is demonstrated in games like Papers, Please. Papers, Please, on the face of it, is the most basic, bit-looking, amateurish game from a screenshot you've ever seen, but the depth and the joy that comes from this game and the interactions you have are second to none. More than you'll find in something that's like had a $200 million budget in some cases in order to create this really visual, mega cinematic experience. And it's all down to the gameplay and how you interact with the game, which is, again, the video game medium doing so well. So what is Papers, Please? Papers, Please, you play a border inspector in like a dystopian Soviet blockade type era where a country is dealing with a wartime situation. There's poverty-stricken lives everywhere, including yourself. And your job is passport control. That annoying process that we go to when we travel internationally of having your passport stamped and checked. And many of us just feel like, oh my God, this is such a drag. I've got to wait, and then someone just goes, are you legal? And you're like, yes. And they're like, okay, where are you going? Where are you coming? Why are you going there? I get it. Obviously, I get to travel a lot, thankfully, with my job, and it's something that I always hate. And when we're booking to go home, I can give you a little story. Is last time we were in Denmark, we had all these wonderful people to spend time with. Fat Boss Alex, OK Mage, Nagura, all these people. And we're like, when do we need to go to the airport? Because we're having a really good time here, but we have to go like 2 hours early or whatever because passport control in Denmark is a real pain in the backside. All this stuff. And that's your job. That's your job. And what you deal with, and I know that so many people who came in like midway through the stream and had never heard of Papers, Please were like, are you just like doing work? In a sense. But it's the medium of translating who you're dealing with, who approaches this passport office. And so the gameplay element is like the very simple run-of-the-mill gameplay element is looking for errors in what the documentation people are giving you. And it steadily increases. So it does have a difficulty curve. So at the very start of the game, it's just like, okay, no foreigners are allowed. You're only allowed people from Arstotzka. Glory to Arstotzka. Only actual natives to the country are allowed in. And then a couple of days later, it'd be like, well, okay, we're going to start allowing foreigners to come into the country. However, we want to make sure that they're like fully legal. So they need to have this kind of documentation with them on top of it. And it's got such subtly great elements, such as the size of your desk. And your arrangement of your desk is really important. It's super important because you end up, like, when it gets harder with, like, lots of documents to check, more that can physically be open at one time on your desk, which means you then need to have a process of elimination. And on top of that, you also need to figure out not only that there's something wrong, so you can't just stamp denied. I can see that, say, your weight is too much. Something's wrong there. Or you have an expired date on your passport. Whatever it might be. You have to start like pointing it out, which means getting out the rule book and being like, well, here it says your passport has to be in date and it's not. And then you can ask them about it. And then sometimes they have an answer. And this is where like the depth of the game comes from. And it's so, so good. Because on top of all these things happening, it is during a dystopian wartime era, is there are attacks on the border. There are also revolutionists who are trying to communicate with passport control in order to sneak their sleeper agents through. And you'll get temptations as to whether you want to do that. And a great back end of the game is that you will you have a family to take care of, and they don't pay very well. They pay by per person you correctly get through the border. And so you have a background element, which is speed is key. The more people you get through the border, your family can eat tonight, or your family can have heating tonight. And if you don't do that, your family might get sick, your children might die, and you have this sort of element of like rush them through. And then you'll have revolutionists who are like, well, we'll give you some money, A lot of money. Money so you can move to a better apartment. Money so that you can make sure your family is fed. Maybe you can have more errors at the border, because if you get errors, not only will your supervisor eventually turn up and chastise you, but also you will start paying fines because you're letting people through who shouldn't be getting through. Perhaps you let through somebody who is a terrorist and they attacked your guardsman that you're looking for. The guards won't want to give you kickbacks. They'll visit you. It's like, hey, I get more money if you arrest people. So you then have a temptation, if things are really bad at home, to like unnecessarily arrest people, because you will get a kickback at the end of the day for doing that, because the guards are happy that they got to do some work. All this happens on top of meeting wonderful, amazing characters, in particular Georgie. Georgie, you reckon, even though they like graphically their faces are very odd because they're simplistic, you recognize people, especially people who come through the border a lot. And those people have quirks, they have charms, they have distinct features, and you feel very engrossed in the role of like, oh my God, not this guy again. Like, I can't believe this guy is here again. Please go away, right? And you have choices to make. And all these choices that I'm talking about aren't just in vain, like in some other games. There's like 20-something endings to this game that can work out or resolve in many different ways, depending on the choices you made in your day-to-day life of working in the passport control office. It took me, this game was a completion time, I think, of 6 hours to get I got the like very ending, which I'm not going to spoil what it is, but it was like the final 20-second ending, I think, which lasts the entire month, because that's how long the game takes place in its world, is a month-long period of time working at the border. And then you can... One thing I really liked about this, so that was a nice touch, is it saves every single day. So if you're looking for completionist and seeing all the endings, it doesn't mean you just need to replay the game over and over again until you get to that point when you can make this choice. You could jot down what day that happens and be like, okay, I finished the game this way. I'm going to go back to day 22. Or I'm going to go back to day 15 or whatever. And then I'm going to take a different route to see where this is going to take me and go in a different way instead of just starting the game over and over. I've no doubt there are a couple of endings that do require a full replay, or as near as damn it, because the choices do start coming in pretty thick and fast after your initial day of learning how the game works. But Lucas Pope is just somebody to keep my eye on, and I think you guys should too. I think for the cheap price that this game is, it's so worth it just to, especially if you're not sure, and I know some people aren't sure on when I talk about the difference between, say, movies, books, and video games, and how you can interact with them, and it's your choices, not somebody else's choices, or the author's choices, or the director's choices of what is going to happen. And this is just a prime example of that. So I'm going to check out, after playing this, our next game is going to be Return of the Obra Dinn, which is another game made by Lucas Pope. Very highly recommended. This is something that Nobble has been badgering me to play for a long, long time, like literally years, and I've never got round to it. But we're going to use this week of mini games in order to check that out. All right, so definitely stick it on your list. Loved this game. So fun. Bye, guys.